Um, Hello everybody. Today is this is the last week of our 8-week period of DRP Turkey. Um, and we are having our last round of events this week before the symposium. So today we have Ilgaz Çakar from Middle East Technical University and our first speaker, and he will be talking about academic presentation skills to us. I should make you co-host, Ilgaz, and I think you can share now. You can take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Ilgan. Let me find the sharing screen first. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Ilgaz Çakar. I'm a second-year PhD student in Middle East Technical University, the Department of Mathematics. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for the organizers for giving all their efforts and all their precious time to organize this wonderful event. And I also want to thank you as mentees to working so hard and attending such seminars. Today, I will try to give you some insight about how to give an effective presentation, effective mathematical presentation, as much as I know the subject. I am not a professional speaker, or I am not a perfect speaker, but I will try my best to give you some advices on the topic. So, first of all, my speech is going to be a collection of the parts of a document, of a presentation. It means that I will be talking about the parts of a presentation, which is first introduction, where you introduce yourself and your topic. Then in the main content, you will build up your topic, build up on your subject, and arrive at your aimed theorem or big result or whatever you are working on. Since main content is the most important part, I will give some do's and don'ts after main content. It is pretty self-explanatory. You either do this or don't do this. And after that, we will briefly talk about how to conclude your presentation, how to give a summarization of your talk. And finally, we will talk about the Q&A session, where you will accept questions from your audience and how you should answer them, try to answer them. Before preparing a presentation, you should be aware of why you are making this presentation. So mathematical presentations in general are done to promote a subject. For instance, you are interested in a subject, let's say group theory, and you want to promote this subject between other students here. You want us to learn or know some things about group theory, so that's why you are making a presentation. But there is an important point here. You want us to learn something, but you are not going to lecture us about your subject. Your only purpose of while giving presentation is to give insight about your topic. You are not lecturing us. We are not supposed to learn everything you studied throughout this 2 months period. I'm sorry. But we are only supposed to be aware of what you studied and acknowledge the existence of such topics. That's pretty important and should always be kept in mind. Another purpose of giving a presentation is to attract researchers to your field, because having some interdisciplinary researchers working on things is pretty important, and also important in mathematics in particular. For instance, if you only study group theory throughout your academic career, you will be miss out so much, and actually you won't be able to solve some certain problems because some certain problems requires you to know topology, for instance. Or for instance, you cannot study differential geometry without knowing linear algebra, this kind of things. So every mathematical presentation is also done to attract researchers from different fields of expertise. So you should always keep those in mind. So let's start with the introduction.
Ilgaz,
Yes.
can I interrupt you? The top of the screen is like black.
Yeah.
In my, it's probably the Zoom menu. Maybe
yeah.
if you can close that.
I don't know how to close it.
You can hide it.
I can't find how to close that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Can you maybe make it smaller or move it to somewhere else? I mean, we just can't see the title of the presentation, but yeah, that might be better.
Is it better like this? I don't know.
Like we are seeing part of the title.
Okay, how is this if I move
okay,
to
this
the
is
bottom?
better. If you don't have anything at that part of the screen. So
okay, if anything appears, then I will just move the window there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the structure of a presentation. I already gave you this information in my content, but let's just go over them one more time. First, you'll have the introduction part where you introduce yourself and your topic. Then during the main content, you will build up your topics, putting on top of each other and arrive at your main result, your big theorem or whatever you are talking about. Then you will give a summary of your talk in the conclusion. And finally, you will accept questions from your audience. Let's start with the introduction part. Introduction part is where you greet the audience and introduce yourself, just as I did at the beginning. I greeted you, I said, thank you for coming here. I introduced myself, gave my name, gave my school, give my affiliations, etc. And I also thanked our organizers. You can also do that. And if you feel like it, you can, of course, thank to your mentor. It wouldn't hurt. After that, you'll introduce your topic very briefly. What did I say? I will try to give you some insight about how to make a presentation. I didn't give you any detail. I didn't talk about any technical things. I just told you what I am going to do during this presentation. That's what you will do in the introduction part. And of course, give us an outline of the presentation so that we know what comes next. And given the outline is important, and you should be careful about not just read these things out loud. So just don't do this introduction, main content, do's and don'ts, conclusion, Q&A. No, we already can see that. You should give explanations for each of the bullet points here with 1 or 2 sentences, not more, so that we would know what you were going to talk about during each of these topics. So that's all for introduction that I can think of. Let's jump into the main content. This main content part might be a little messy, so excuse me for this matter. On your main content, you will, of course, give some basic information. If you are going to talk about topology, for instance, you might want to give the definition of a topology. Or if you are talking about abstract algebra, you might give the definition of a field, of a ring, or whatever comes to your mind. Just don't be too simple or don't be too advanced while delivering your main content. Also, the very important thing is that avoid using full sentences in your slides. I mean, I understand that some definitions of theorems might require you to use full sentences, but in that case, try to shorten your sentences as much as possible. without disturbing the meaning, without changing the meaning. And of course, talking about the full sentences, you should avoid giving full proofs of theorems unless it is extremely necessary. My suggestion on giving proofs is that don't do at all. But if you need to give a proof, if you feel that without the proof it might be so empty, I don't know, then of course you can give a proof, but please avoid giving a full proof. We don't understand how that formula is obtained. Okay, we just need some insight about it. We don't need to understand fully. So if you are giving a proof, keep it as brief as possible. And at this point, I want to give you an example of maybe how to give a proof. At the beginning of the summer, I attended the Young Mathematicians meeting, and I gave a talk about the discretization of Laplace operators. There's a formula which doesn't look like the Laplace operator itself. So I need to give some insight about that formula. It requires some basic Euclidean geometry facts. Let's see how I give those facts and arrive at the formula together and then discuss about it. First, we have a triangle with base length omega, height h, and interior angles alpha and beta. Then the sum of these interior cotangents of these interior angles is equal to this ratio. I won't give the proof of this. It's unnecessary. It's a simple geometric fact. Just draw a perpendicular here, then compute the summation. After that, I don't want to bother you with too much, but we have some kind of function, and its gradient on this triangle is equal to the perp of this edge vector. It's just the same vector, but it's perpendicular and looking upwards, divided by the area of the triangle. Not important why we have a division here. Then this gradient, if I take the inner product with itself, it will equal to this one. It just comes from these two formulas. I won't explain it why, but these gradients are just calculated at this vertex. That's all you should know. After that, what if we calculate the same inner product on different vertices? It's just this formula where the theta is this angle. And finally, I will combine all these formulas together to obtain my discrete Laplace operator on this particular shape. This is called the cotan formula. It's a pretty famous formula if you are studying discrete differential geometry. So this is my proof. Right now, you don't know how to prove this formula by yourself, but you don't feel too strange about the formula, okay? When I say Laplacian, you may not think about cotangents and some lengths. These are related to these lengths somehow. You don't know how to prove it. You don't know exactly where it came, but you know you have some insight about how to obtain this formula. And this should pretty much be how you are going to prove things if you ever need to prove anything during your presentation. Let's talk about clarity and simplicity. Use bullet points wherever possible. That's just a simple thing. And using bullet points, please try to add this thing here. Instead of a sharp here, just put some numbers so that you can control when your bullet point going to be on the screen. If you don't use bullet points, but just presenting some equations, then you can use on-slide command. I will not go technical details about this because you can already find them on Overleaf webpage or on the Discord channel. Try to limit your texts to essential points. I mean, I can just use this. I can just say this and end my presentation, okay? Try to use texts as less as possible, please. We are here to listen to you talking. We are not there to read what you write, okay? We are here to listen to you. So you should be talking. We shouldn't be reading, but listening. Okay, so try not to write anything unnecessary. And we have some bad examples about limiting text. I will not give any reference for these examples. I just found them on the internet. It talks about bisection method to find the roots of certain functions. Look what does it say? First of all, it has 5 lines of text. And if you read the text, it is actually what your instructors tell you by speaking, not writing on the board. So all this text can actually be talking. We shouldn't be reading this on the board, but we should be listening to it. Because reading is too much time consuming, and also it's unnecessary for a speech. I mean, look at the name, it's a speech. It's not a read, it's speech. So you should speak. Another bad thing about using too much text is the solution for a problem. It's not a full solution for any problem. But look, for, since, intermediate value theorem ensures, blah, blah, blah. We will use, never write such a thing. You should say this thing, not write. Then logarithms can be blah, blah, we will use, etc. I mean, this can be simplified. This is a 5-line text with a 1-line equation. This can be simplified to 1-line text and 1-line equation. Just delete all the words, because all the things necessary here are the function, its values, and the interval. And of course, the line of equation. So it's just 2 lines. We don't need 5 lines plus an equation here. So try to avoid any unnecessary text on your slides. Another thing, another bad example. We will consider, we examine, we will work specifically, check some features. When we examine, we consider. Now, all this 4 line of text is actually a speech, is actually can be delivered by talking. Okay, don't do this. And final mixed example, it's both a good example and a bad example. The proposition itself is pretty good. It's pretty simplified. Okay, but the proof, no. If you are going to give a proof, don't do it like this. Do not just copy paste from your book. Okay, don't write, assume that. Since you already know, trivial, previous proposition, you construct the following, therefore the rest follows from. No, these are all just, can be delivered by speech. Okay, you can of course write the mathematical terms here and write this sequence on the board, but you don't have to write any other texts included here. Okay, be careful about it, please. Now, another important aspect of a presentation is the use of visual aids. For the ones who are studying topology, geometry, etc., it's a pretty easy thing to do because you already have tons of images that you can use during your presentation. And I know that for those who are studying an abstract topic like group theory, etc., it might be a little challenging, but please try to include some visuals. It doesn't have to be a graph or something. It can be a diagram. I don't know. Just try to find some visual things to present us so that your presentation isn't full of text only. Okay. And another important thing about using visual aids is that do not just say, and here's the dinner habits of some people, and pass on to the next slide. If you are presenting us with a visual aid, make explanations on it. For instance, this is a pie chart about dinner habits of, I don't know, some people. I don't know them. But since I am presenting you this, I should explain you that 30% of people prefer porridge on their dinners, and only 5% of people prefers eating sushi on their dinners. I mean, at least give us some minimums, maximums, or what is important about this visual. Okay, don't expect your audience to examine the whole chart, examine the whole image, or whatever you are presenting. But make the explanations yourself. Tell us, why is this chart important for your topic? Okay, why does it help us? After this, of course, this is a mathematics talk, so you will have equations and formulas, but you just need to skip complicated steps while you are doing computations. Okay, you don't need to know every technical detail about computations or again proofs. Okay, try to skip complicated steps. And please use these two environments, align and array, on your presentation, so that you can give your equations in steps, so that both you and us, your audience, can follow your equations easily. And try avoid including text in the equations. Okay, sometimes it might be necessary to make things clear. It's acceptable, but use less text if possible. I mean, as I said before, use less text is the slogan of this talk, the talk I'm giving for you right now. We have a better example about this. First of all, it says that let A be an arbitrary 2x2 orthogonal matrix. First of all, there's an grammar mistake here. Second of all, there is A equals to this element of O2. What does it mean? A is a 2x2 matrix, element of orthogonal matrices. So since this one is written, this text is extremely unnecessary. Just delete it. Again, we have a we know that. Okay, we know that. We don't need to read, we know that. We know that. Here is a matrix multiplication. Okay, but it's a two-line equation, and the second line doesn't align with the first line. We have equality signs here, but these equality signs doesn't align with these two, which reduces the readability of these equations. These two lines might not be related, but in that case, they should be separated. If they are together, they should be aligned well. And also, this gives us this equation. No, first of all, this is a mistake. And second of all, this whole expression is a mistake. You can just say it, okay? We see this, and this will give us these equations, okay? We don't need this text here. Now, of course, you will give examples and illustrations, and you should give examples and illustrations. Don't just drown us with theory, okay? Try to give us applications. It might be real-world applications. It might be applications in some other subjects of the mathematics. Doesn't matter. But giving real-life examples is always a good thing. And if your topic allows you to do, try to give computational examples as well. But again, avoiding complicated steps. For real-life examples, I'm not always talking about nuclear physics or some other extremely complicated things. You can just give us a frame from a movie. Here, I take this image from one of my previous presentations, actually. It talks about surface smoothing. Here, this surface is extremely polygonal, but when you increase the number of polygons, it looks smoother. I could have used some abstract shape to explain this, but using a well-known character from a movie franchise is a lot more attractive. If you weren't listening to me well up to now, when you see Thanos, I'm sure you started to give your attention to me. Okay, so don't hesitate to use this kind of popular culture examples if it is related to your topic. And since we talk about popular culture references, you can always include some minor jokes in your presentation. Okay, as long as it is related to your topic, and maybe if adds something to your topic, do not hesitate to use jokes. Okay. But do not exaggerate the number of it. I'm just giving you a couple examples here so that you know what kind of jokes you can add. Of course, the jokes should be appropriate jokes, and they also should be related to the topic you are talking about. So don't just give this joke in an abstract algebra talk. I don't know. Now, do's and don'ts. First of all, you should do a lot of rehearsals. Probably most of you are inexperienced speakers, so you might experience some anxiety about your talk. The way to solve it is to do rehearsals. And during those rehearsals, you should practice your timing. For the DRP-Symposium, you will have 25 minutes for your talk and 5 minutes for your Q&A. I'm sorry, I'm confused. You have 20 minutes for your talk and 5 minutes for Q&A. So while you are practicing timing, try not to exceed that 20 minutes limit, okay? And you should also practice transition. By transition, I mean that transition between slides and also transition between different topics. And in order to do that efficiently, you should know your topic inside out, and you should know your presentation, your slides inside and out. And that comes with doing a lot of rehearsals, of course. And while you are rehearsing, do it out loud, because rehearsing inside your head and out loud are completely different things, and it will change your timing extremely. So do your rehearsals out loud, and you can also do your rehearsals with a friend or with a family member or with your mentor. Actually, you should do a lot of rehearsals with your mentor so that he or she can warn you about your mistakes or what you lack or what you do good, etc. During your speech, giving context is so important. Your audience is not an expert on your study, and probably none of us studied your subject as much as you do. Maybe of course, some mentors studied more than you, but you got my point. Your main audience is other mentees. So probably none of them studied your topic as much as you do. So in order them to understand your speech well, you should provide good context. That is, you should explain why you are doing something. And after doing something, you should explain why it was important to do. That kinds of things are the context. And when you use images, of course, they should be high quality. We don't like to see some pixels on the board. Another important aspect is to use citations. Since you are not claiming that you found new results, this is actually not extremely important for you, but it's an important habit to have as a researcher, as a future mathematician, as a scientist. You should always cite your sources. And about this, please do not use Wikipedia as a direct source. You can find information from Wikipedia, but do not write Wikipedia on your references. In every Wikipedia page, at the bottom of the page, you can see a references section. So examine those references and determine which one is the source that contains the information you need, and use that source in your references, not Wikipedia itself. And for simplification purposes, you can consider using footnotes. You already saw that in my fairness example and one more example, I used a footnote to give you my source. Okay, you can always do that. Then you should simplify your language. What do I mean by simplify? First of all, of course, you should reduce your text as much as possible, but both in your text and in your speech, try not to use too technical terms. I mean, try to explain your subject as if you are explaining to a 5-year-old child for this presentation, of course, for DRP. When you are doing your PhD or postdoctoral research, of course, you don't do that because your audience will generally be an expert audience. So you can give your speeches in an advanced mode. But for this purpose, for the DRP purpose, avoid using extreme language, extreme jargon. Okay. Just remember that your audience may not be knowledgeable about your own subject, and act accordingly. During your speech, you should be an active speaker. What do I mean? You should make eye contact with your audience. It includes that not looking directly at the board. Okay. 99% of the time, you should be facing to your audience, not to the board, not to the computer, etc. And always look at the eyes of your audience. Do not look at outside the window, or do not look at the ground or the ceiling. Okay, your audience is there for you, so you should be interacting with them. So in order to interact with your audience, you can ask questions. What kind of questions you can ask to your audience? This kind of questions. A question that your audience should be able to answer. So your questions won't be about seeing if your audience understood what you're talking. Okay? Ask questions in order to draw attention, not to make a test of your audience. Since this is an online presentation, I cannot demonstrate this, but try to use all your stage, okay? Try to walk around, but try not to look like a prisoner, okay? Use all your stage, move sometimes. Don't be like a tree there. Don't be like a tree and glue yourself at a certain point, okay? Try to move, it will look good. Try to use your voice well, of course. This is extremely important if you want to keep the attention of your audience on yourself. For this, imagine the professor that you all have, whose classes are extremely boring. Okay, I am pretty sure that none of you wants to be like that professor when you are giving a speech. So in order to avoid this, try to use your voice. Try to have ups and try to have lows. Okay. So just don't use a monotone voice for speech. And please use a laser pointer. Okay. I'm not using it very much, but try to use a laser pointer. Do not use your finger or a stick or anything else to show things on your presentation. Use a laser pointer. I'm sure that organizers will provide you with a laser pointer, so use it. And don't use another thing. Let's talk about don'ts. Don't read your slides out loud. I mean, of course you can read, but that shouldn't be the only thing, because as your audience, as at least being university students, you all know how to read things. So your job is not to read your slides. Your job is to explain what is written on your slides. And this again brings me to the thing that you should avoid using too much text. Use less text and more speech. And do not rely on your slides too much. Okay, they are just a tool for you to deliver things you know. Your slides are not the main object. You are the main object, and you should be the one delivering the information, not the slides. Actually, for this purpose, I have a rule of thumb. You don't necessarily have to follow it strictly, but I suggest at least give it a try. In your presentation, if you have one word or some only keywords, try to explain them in at least one full sentence. Okay, so I didn't just read this out loud, but I gave an explanation for it. I think it was 2 sentences. And again, I gave at least 2-sentence explanation for this one. And if you have a complete sentence as a bullet point or something on your presentation, try to explain it with 2 different full sentences. And none of these 2 sentences can be the same as the written sentence here. So in total, 1 written on the slide and 2 you speak. This way, you did more talking and we did less reading. And that's the important thing about giving a presentation, of course. Again, do not use too much text. Okay, I cannot emphasize it enough because I know that you have some inexperienced talkers. So you want something to rely on. So you try to write everything down on your slides. Just don't do that. Instead, do lots of rehearsals. If you must have a text of your speech and use it to give your speech, but during your talk, of course, you won't have such a paper. Just try to understand your topic, know your presentation, know your slides, and talk a lot. Do not read from the slides. And similarly, do not include too much information on a single slide. If necessary, just write 1 sentence or just give 1 image in 1 slide, and it's okay. Try not to use unfamiliar symbols. I mean, we all are familiar with alpha, beta, gamma, etc. But you might know that there are some strange letters like zeta, eta, psi, etc. I mean, I don't really know which one is which one. If you are going to use such unusual characters in your slides, try to give proper explanation beforehand and just do not expect us to know them beforehand, okay? Do not use animated transitions, please. This is an academic presentation. We should give a lot of focus on your talk to follow it. So animated transitions are just distractions. They're nothing more. They won't add value to your presentation. So do not use them. And do not be shy about your English skills, okay? I am now giving you a presentation about how to deliver a presentation, but you already see me do a lot of grammar mistakes. I did a lot of sounds. I forgot the correct terminology for what I want to say, and I mispronounce words all the time. Okay, these things are not the main focus of your talk. Okay, the important thing is that you give information to us, and that's what us as your audience are trying to focus on. We don't judge you by your speech. We only want to learn things from you, and that's all matters. But in order to defeat your shyness, I can give you a couple hints about it. Again, I'm not a speech expert, or I'm not an expert on teaching how to speak, but I know some rules about it. While you are giving your presentation, talk out loud. Since you will be in a classroom or an auditorium, I don't know the place well, you should already be talking out loud, okay? So talk out loud while you are rehearsing and while you are presenting. Give pauses. It won't make you look like an amateur. It also, I mean, it actually benefits you. It benefits you by giving you enough time to make up your mind and think what you will talk next. And it will give time to your audience to digest what you are talking, what you are saying. You are giving a mathematics talk, which is not an easy thing to follow, not an easy thing to understand. And of course, it is not an easy thing for you to deliver well. So try give to pauses. It won't affect your speech negatively. It will only have positive effects. And for that matter, you can also try speak slowly. You don't have to go blah, 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 blah. Just try to speak normally. And related to this matter, try to articulate your words well. Just give me a second, excuse me. My throat got dry. By articulate well, if you look at my camera, by articulate well, I mean that exaggerate your mouth movements while doing your rehearsals. It will slow your talk, but with this, you will be talking more confidently, okay? And surprisingly, it will give you a slight British accent, which is always a cool thing. Finally, during your main content, you arrived at your main point, your main theorem, whatever you are speaking about. After giving it, and before finishing your talk, you should summarize your talk using a few sentences. During those few sentences, try not to use extreme terminology. Keep it simple. Try not to exceed 4 or 5 sentences. Okay, try not to give new definitions, new theorems, or try not to state a whole definition or whole theorem from your presentation. Just remind us what you have talked about from the beginning with a few sentences. And then emphasize the importance of your subject. I mean, I said 4 words, but it doesn't have to benefit the whole word. It can only be beneficial for the mathematical words. It doesn't matter. Just put an emphasis on its importance or its applications one more time. And then you are finished. You just thank to your audience and state that you are ready to accept questions. At this point, while thanking your audience, of course, you can write a thank you on a slide. That's nothing wrong with it, but I don't like to do that a lot. And after your thanking, please present a reference list on your presentation. And if there are some important sources on your references, put an emphasis on them. Like in this book, you can find more examples. In this article, you can study the proof of the main theorem. And if you want to learn more about this part, you can look at this paper, etc. In the slide, I won't give references because I made all the things up. I mean, it's all coming from me and my experiences. And of course, we cannot give citations for the memes we used. They're just anonym. Finally, when you're ready to accept questions, the Q&A session will start. For this session, please let the moderator to do his job and moderate this part. The moderator will accept questions for you. You just don't choose an audience member and, okay, you can ask, okay, you can ask. No, this is the moderator's job. You don't do that. What you are going to do is, while we are listening, do not interrupt the question. Be sure that the audience member finishes all his question before you start answering. If you think you didn't understand the question, or if you have doubts about it, just paraphrase the question and ask, is this what you are asking? Okay, for instance, you can ask me that, are we a professional talker? and I might not understand this question very well, and I can ask you back, are you asking if I have a certificate for teaching you how to talk, or are you just asking me if I am experienced enough to teach you these things? And you'll just clear your question for me, okay? And be sure you fully answer the question. You can ask if you fully answered the question, and then you can ask for further questions from the same audience member. If the specific audience member finished with this question and you answer it fully, then the moderator will pick another question for you, and the same process happens again. And during the Q&A session, I know that you might get anxious about it. Do not hesitate to say, I don't know. You don't have to be an expert on your topic. I mean, even when a professor gives a talk, he might not know all the details. Okay, so definitely you don't have to know everything about your topic. Do not be afraid of saying, I don't know. Maybe you don't know specifically that knowledge, but you might have an idea about it. Then you can say, I don't know, but I think blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's also okay, as long as you state that you don't exactly know that. And I think that's all for my talk. Thank you for listening to me. And now I would gladly answer your questions and accept your comments if you have any.
Wow, Ilgaz, this was amazing. You highlighted like every point that we need to be careful about when giving a presentation. This was a really nice, and like the thing I like the most about is you were actually doing everything you were telling people to do. So like I think it was a very good job in that sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I think so under the don'ts slide, you mentioned giving a pause. So should they give a pause or don't give a pause?
Oh, I mean, they should give small pauses, but not like 15-second pause.
Okay.
Just 3 to 4 seconds to refreshen their lungs and made up their minds about what to say next, and also to provide the audience enough time to digest the new information.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Are there any questions in the audience for our speaker? So there's a question in the chat. I'm going to read it out loud. It seems very difficult to write the proofs in short. Is there an easy method for this?
It depends on your topic, actually. If there are equations or something, just try to write the mathematical things, like the equalities, the Greek alphabet things, etc. And first, try not to add any text in it. You should be saying things out loud. And secondly, if you think some steps are too hard to understand or too hard to explain, you can just cut them. Just don't show them to audience. And you can say that, okay, after some calculations, after some steps, we arrived at this position, and you can keep going from where you left.
So a follow-up question, is it okay to just talk about the methods used in the proof and directly give the results? I think that's what you said in the first place, right?
Yeah, of course, that's what my example was about. I just give 4 facts about Euclidean geometry without explaining how to combine them together. I just gave the result. That's totally fine. You can do it.
And like if someone wants to know the specific details of a proof, they can always ask you at the end of the talk or like one-on-one, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Do not be hesitate to invite the audience member after the talk, and you can just have a discussion about the details later.
Cool. Are there any other questions? You mentioned something about laser pointers. May you repeat it?
Of course. During your presentations, I'm sure that you will be given some laser pointers like this one. Or I mean, the object you play with your cat, you know, they follow it. I'm sure that organizers will provide you with one. When you have to show something on your presentation, like highlighting or showing something on the figure you are using, use the laser pointer. Do not point it with your finger, or do not use some strange object like a stick. Use the laser pointer to point the parts that is important in your slides. And only use the pointer, nothing else.
And we just got the confirmation that there will be laser pointers in Sabancı University when you were giving your talks. So that's good.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah. Maybe we can take one more question, if there's any. And you can always ask questions to our speaker by directly emailing him, I'm assuming. So I think this was a great talk. And we thank our speaker once again.